Okay, so I'm gonna try to make this a quick video, um, as a response to a question that, if I were to try and explain it, like, in complete detail, it would probably take me a while because it's sort of like, I would say it's almost like, best answer would be like, if you, if you're new to my channel and, you have this kind of question like Three Rhinos asked, it would be like hours and hours of footage, but essentially, like, my videos, a lot of them were just me vlogging uh, about what's happened over the last, let's say, 4 years. But in the interest of attempting to answer the question, essentially, 3.5 years ago, I think it was, um, yeah, more like 3.5 years ago, I essentially had the end to my longest Nofap streak. And it was sort of the result of the fallout of a decision I made earlier that year. And there's a lot to unpack and all of that. But needless to say, I essentially had to like deal with these consequences, and those consequences caused a severe emotional disturbance, which then caused me to relapse. Now, why was I in that spot in life to begin with? Well, it's almost like I'd have to tell my whole life story, but as far as, like, let's say in the year preceding that time, I had failed a couple classes for my chemical engineering degree, and my GPA dropped, really low, and I was put on academic probation. And I had my struggles academically beforehand. A lot of it was due to outside factors like disruption from people around me in my immediate sort of like life circle, if you will. But I was at this point now where it's like, okay, those people aren't around anymore, and why am I still having these issues? Why am I on academic probation, etc., etc.? And I decided to start using Nofap as this means to really working on those problems. And I had noticed that, pretty much every time I dealt with a, significant amount of stress, I had gone in PM mode, and that I'd gotten really bad grades. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to cut out the PMOing, and I'm going to, start doing all this sort of self-analysis. And that led to a lot of progress. I made it that far as I did, like 6.5 months or so. But there are some things that, like, you make a decision and you kind of just got to deal with the consequences. And I was in a relationship, long distance relationship, with a girl from Morocco. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't realize at the time. I hadn't really studied like a lot of sort of psychological disorders. But in retrospect, she had borderline personality disorder, and I was essentially in an abusive relationship. In the midst of all this, along comes another girl who's from the same country, who apparently was into me, and apparently, at the time, checked off a significant number of the boxes, so to speak, of like what I would consider, close to my, at the time, my, ideal girl. But because I was so conditioned into believing a certain set of things, this is wrong, that's right, be this honorable, loyal, charitable, committed kind of a guy, etc., etc., I rejected her. And I decided to stay with the abusive girlfriend. And what really precipitated the relapse was I, started like thinking about, was my decision the right decision, etc., etc. And I think it was after another bout of this girl just treating me like trash. And I was just like, wow, like, did I make the right decision to stay with this girl? Like, oh, what about the other girl? And then, I didn't have any real contact with her until school started up again. And I'd already relapsed by that point, mostly because, the whole regret deal, just thinking about the possibilities and whatnot. But then, a lot of stuff was confirmed following that she'd moved on to another guy. And not just that, but she basically turned the corner and turned on, her her religion and culture and all that background, and basically gone off to be um, just like a lot of other girls. Okay, I'm gonna put it like that because if I really were to sort of unload on things, which I think I've already kind of expunged that from my mind, and I don't necessarily want to go back to that, but the state of affairs being what they are in the world, it might be considered a little too controversial or offensive to really talk about those things, and as such, I refuse to at this point. But needless to say, from that point onward, it was like sort of one thing after the next, and I had to deal with a lot of hostility from people, a lot of backstabbing, a lot of lying, a lot of cheating behavior, a lot more abuse from the now ex-girlfriend, mistreatment from that girl. I mean, obviously she was, disgruntled against me for rejecting her advances, and there was a lot of stuff that happened that basically caused me to sort of like have to reevaluate a lot of my beliefs about like human nature, morality, politics, religion, money, so on and so forth. And that's kind of what's led me up to being where I'm at right now, where I had struggles trying to get to a month and a half, 2 months, 3 months, etc. But yeah. And then, of course, sort of some leftover fallout from that, even after graduation, were folks who, were in that sort of circle, would be trying to contact me, trying to, get hired at the company I was at. Not apparently remembering all the stuff they said and did that would make someone in my position want to say, no, I'm not going to help you, or just, ignore them. And, again, I could probably go into some detail about other events, but essentially that's kind of what's happened, because pretty much every time I've had an actual like relapse, and especially a really hard relapse where I've binged, it's been because there's been some sort of emotional disturbance that came out of left field that it was the kind that I didn't really have sort of the almost like the gear or the capability of handling at that point in time, because it was something that was significant, meaningful, purposeful, intentional, and it was the kind of stuff that I didn't have any preparation for, if you will. So that's kind of, if I were to answer that question, which I appreciate the question, I appreciate the support. It's a bit uncomfortable of a question because it sort of centers on a lot of stuff that I've been wanting to really move on from. But this channel being esquisite catharsis, occasionally I may end up having to revisit that sort of stuff, but no harm, no foul. That's my answer to that question. So like I said, maybe in the future I could go into detail about other stuff, but that's essentially what happened. And I will say that overall life has improved, so it's not like it was a complete loss. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So I guess I'll see you folks around. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for the subscriptions. And I'll see you in another video later. Bye-bye.